Today's chat is brought to you by Loot Crate. Save 10% on any new subscription at www.trylootcrate.com/FFC. Enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings.
Welcome to Focused Fire Chat. Explore together.
Welcome back for episode 108 of Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on November 10th, 2017, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Big shout out to our live chat here. Thank you so much for joining us for another evening back in the tower. This is your host, Blue Crew 86. Alongside me, we have our favorite Gunter, the one and only Green-Eyed Music Lover. Green, I hope you're doing well. Looking forward to tonight's chat.
Yes. Look at this glorious Titan I've got on.
Yeah,
and she dances too. She's dancing.
You have the wrong colors, but I mean,
no,
we're not going to get into that, right?
We are wearing the new monarchy. Yeah, because our faction's going to win.
and also back in the, you just heard him, we have with us the grizzly bearded lore master himself, Beard Grizzly. Beard, how are you doing tonight, other than
grumbly, like always, and you know, sitting here going, FWC got third last time, and that's a little horse. Anyway, no, I'm doing great. It's been a tiring week, but that's nothing new. I may as well just put that on my normal feelings list. But no, it's good to be here this evening. I'm actually kind of looking forward to tonight's chat because there's a lot of stuff that I don't personally know about the Titans, and granted, everybody knows I hate them anyway, so that's partially on my bias side. But I am definitely looking forward to the orders because they're such a key and integral idea when it comes down to Titans, and I like them.
Right. Oh yeah. The orders are. I remember back when we first did a chat on Titans in Destiny 1, the orders were a really big part of the topic, simply because, and I think we're going to get into a couple of them for the Lost Lore section, but because because they were kind of lost lore, like unless you really dug into some of the information from the Grimoire, the orders were really easy to overlook.
Yes.
So.
But, well, and it's really, before I get too far into it, but it's really easy to just not realize that there are that many orders. Like,
right. Well, and then like you don't just have orders. You also had hosts, which are like a subsect of orders, and then you obviously you had your fire teams, but it's the way that the Titan hierarchy is set up is much more regimented than, which kind of goes in line with a lot of what a lot of people kind of assume about Titans.
Yep.
But yes, Green is kicking me over here. So we're obviously looking forward to diving into this discussion. So let's run through a few quick notes, and then we're going to get right into it. Our topic for this week's chat is going to be a look at Titans. Before we jump into that, however, I do have a few housekeeping notes to run through. In our last chat, we discussed the collapse. If you ever miss an episode and would like to catch up, please be sure to check out the new FocusFireChat.com for archives, articles, and links to the other aspects of Focus Fire Chat. If you don't mind, please give us some feedback on iTunes to let us know how we're doing, as well as helping us continue to grow. As many of you already know, Focus Fire Chat is a cross-community gathering where the intent is to offer a week-long, in-depth view of a particular subject from within the lore of Destiny and other games. This chat begins every Tuesday morning and runs until the following Tuesday, with topics decided by the group via a poll that begins every Friday and ends on the Tuesday morning of the new chat. Every Friday, at about 10 p.m. Central, we get together to stream a recap of the previous week's chat for those who are unable to participate. Please be sure to also give some support to the other podcasts in the Guardian Radio Network, links of which can be found in our show notes or on our website. Podcasts focused on Destiny include Guardian Radio, the first and longest-running Destiny podcast on the net, Guardian 1, a Destiny group dedicated to Guardians helping Guardians and discussing current Destiny news and happenings, Ghost and Echoes, which is a collection of the Destiny audio grimoire from Destiny 1, and the network's newest edition, The Guardian Life, which is a podcast from the casual Guardians perspective that highlights all Guardians, large and small. We actually do also have some non-Destiny focused podcasts, including Paragon Radio, which is a podcast that focuses on news and events in Epic Games MOBA, Paragon, and their community, and The Enthusiast Life, which is a podcast discussing a wide range of fun topics from within the entertainment world. Our next chat is going to be a discussion on an introduction to the exotic weapons that we have in Destiny 2. I asked Green to put together a high-level summary of tonight's topic, and this is what she had to say.
As a Titan, you lead the charge. You are the first into the fray. The body is made from tiny stuff from near nothings. From atoms swimming through a blood of crackling sparks. Simple eternal laws shape the universe. The largest galaxy is ruled by principles of mass and motion. Electrons are slaves to charge and to chance, and this is why the universe feels inexhaustible, eternal. The light allows us to master charge and chance.
Before we jump into the information and thoughts that the community had about Titans, however, let's look at this week's Lost Lore. All right, Green, you want to walk us through what we're looking at for Lost Lore?
Well, I think we were going to talk about the first pillars a little bit, so this is kind of a throwback to D1 in all honesty.
Mm-hmm.
And the first pillars were only really mentioned in the Mervaux Type O armor set.
That is correct, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like the mark and everything, but that's still a part of the original set, essentially. But there's a few different ones. There's, I don't know what aspect of it on. I mean, we have a few different names that we've not seen before, like Emona Swell or Swall.
Right, and those are all from. I mean, to be fair, most of the first pillars information are from Destiny 1. Like Green is saying, all those names are actually in those armor sets. So we've had them since Destiny 1, but a lot of a lot of people haven't realized it. And the thing about the first pillars is that it, and we were kind of talking about this before the show started. The first pillars is actually kind of a tragic order. It's a lot
of the different groupings are tragic considering all that we've gone through.
Yeah, the hosts, like a couple of the hosts are, I know Yagi's host is, interestingly, yeah, we'll get into that in just a second.
We'll get into them.
Yeah, because there's a weird twist on Yagi's story that I do want to touch on, but yeah, going back to the first pillars were it seems, and this is a lot of our information on the first pillars is kind of assumed, it's kind of inferred. The first pillars were basically the kind of a heroic order of Titans who were, we don't know if they were in the current, well, I guess we should also back up, and this is another thing we were talking, the reason I'm kind of taking a step back again is because we were talking about this also before show, so I'm kind of trying to touch base. The important thing to know is that Titans measure the passing of time a little bit differently than, I guess, everyone else, which isn't a huge thing. But one of the things that they do is they measure it in what they call ages, right? And the way that they measure the ages is basically by massive conflict, wars. Previous to Destiny 2, we were in what is called the 12th age. At the beginning of Destiny 2, that marked the end of the 12th Age and the beginning of the 13th Age, which is the whole Red War. The Red War takes place as the 13th Age of the Titans, pretty much, is the kind of the implied note here. First Pillars seem to predate possibly even the 12th Age. We actually do have records of other orders from prior to the age, or the 12th Age. So that's not something new. But yeah, so First Pillars were a very heroic thing, and the common thread between all of the records here, and yeah, great, and I'm going to let you take over in just a second. The common theme is that they are gone. Like, they've all, as Guardians, they've all experienced what's normally called the second death. So, Green, yeah, I know you wanted to...
Well, I wanted to kind of comment on him because the structure of these flavor texts, I guess, of the flavor text within this armor set feels very much so like what we got with the Iron Lords armor set right at the beginning of when we first started learning about Iron Lords. It's very similar because you have a named character in each of the pieces except for the mark, and kind of like, hey, this is their last stand. And you get every little last stand, like where they got it. So, and not all of them are, it looks like Titans necessarily, because Gunvor the Dawn Caller, like, is a Dawn Caller an order?
I kind of think that it was actually more, that was a kind of a title that she was given, because the Ward of Dawn, you call the Dawn.
Right. Because, let's see, Gunvar the Dawn Caller gave her last full measure at the Ocean of Storms, the last stands of the First Pillars. Edmonda Swale gave her last full measure in the Cosmodrome. Kei Ying gave his last full measure at the Twilight Gap. Luke Romanga?
Yeah,
Romanga?
yeah, that's the one. That's the one that a lot of people, if they recognize names, for some reason, Luke Ramon is a name that a lot of people are kind of like, they perk up at for some reason.
I don't know. And he gave his last full measure in the European Dead Zone, which probably that's the reason why it does perk up, because it is a unique name, a unique location in D1, because we didn't know much about the European Dead Zone except for this and like maybe two other things in the Grimoire originally.
Yeah,
I would just say it's more because the name is Luke.
Yeah.
We don't hear of a lot of like simple names like that within the lore. It's just like, Luke, where did this come from?
That's true. That's also true.
That, and also, like, well, going back to the comment about we didn't hear about the EDZ a lot. The EDZ, I think, was only mentioned on this one, really, and then was it the Binary Star Cult?
Yes.
So. I know it's in like one or two other places, but it is rarely talked about. Yes, and it is funny how, as a very, very slight side note, they do kind of keep that up with the beginning of Destiny 2, how they actually say anybody that walks in here like died. I like how they kept that going. Anyway, yeah, they do reference it in very, very, very few places. And most of the names too kind of follow, and you just pointed it out here in chat, Blue. Most of the names kind of follow a very similar style besides them. We've got Kei Ying, which was like Wei Ying in a way. And that's just the way that they kind of attribute the names and build the names is interesting. And it's, I don't necessarily want to say that it's by order or any of the names otherwise, but it feels like there's some measure of connection with the names that they have. I'm not explaining myself very well, but that's the best I can kind of do.
Yeah, to me, you know, again, Green, yeah, you said it's kind of that generic Far Eastern sound to it. I mean, I'll just be honest, when you said Kei Ying, I was like, the first thing that came to mind was Wei Ning, which it was just an interesting thing. But chat too, Rhino is saying in chat that the pillars seem to forge the path and allow us to reclaim some of those areas. And you know, that's true. And you actually do get, so for as little information as we get, I'm going to actually stand corrected. This actually does point to them being present within the 12th age, because Kei-Ying was at Twilight Gap. So I was incorrect speaking a little bit earlier there. But yeah, it I don't know, like this just seems like one of those orders that definitely was kind of a, and you know, the name First Pillars, right? That kind of gives this idea that they were one of the first orders. I know when we first talked about Titans back on episode 15, I remember talking about the orders that we kind of touched on at that point was the First Pillar, obviously, Firebreak, Chain, Gatewatch, and Agama, and then potentially the Sun Legion. But I know that we did definitely talk about the First Pillars a little bit then as well. Beard.
It almost feels like, if we're comparing it to anything today, it's something like the Marines. They're the first in to fight, basically, something of that kind of notion. But at that point, they would be the ones that are like a commonplace, larger name in a way. And they have the first rights, if you will, as well, towards a lot of battle. Yes, we have those other forces that are like up on the wall and everything, but I think the comparison here is that they would be the first one that's like into the front of it. I know Green might have something to add on that too.
Well, the only thing that I wanted to comment on is that each of the cards mentions somebody from, it seems like almost a different age, because we have
okay.
So we have a loss within each of the ages, not necessarily the only loss, but a notable one. So you have the Oceans of Storm, the Cosmodrome, the Twilight Gap battle, European Dead Zone. Now, I don't necessarily think it's from each different age, but it kind of throws that feeling right away. But
yeah, because Twilight, I was just going to say, Twilight and Oceans were... when I read Ocean of... when I read Ocean of Storms, I connect to Mare Imbrium, which is obviously a different location, but that great disaster, like that entire event, we know that it was kind of taking place all over the moon from
right.
Ghost, yes. What was it? Ghost Fragment Warlock 2, I think? Is that the Ariana torture one? Is it Warlock 2 or Warlock 3? I can't remember which one, but it's one of the Ghost Fragment Warlocks. It's Ariana's card, which is an amazing card. But we know that she was not at Mare Imbrium, but she was on the moon when Wei Ning, spoiler, Wei Ning got killed. Spoiler alert there. But what I was going to say there is that we know that pretty much a lot of the moon's surface was involved in some capacity to that great disaster, even though the main battle seems to have taken place on Mare Imbrium. So when you say someone gave their last full measure at the Ocean of Storms, that's kind of where I was kind of connecting it. And that's to tie back into the idea that Ocean of Storms would have existed in the same quote-unquote age as Twilight Gap. I'm trying to think if we have any... I keep thinking of Visigoths, but that's for Yagi. I keep coming back to Yagi's host in my head. I'll just be completely honest with everyone. So I don't know why. I have no idea why, but yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have on First Pillars. Do we want to jump into some of the known Titans? I know that was kind of a big part of the chat. Do you guys have anything left on the First Pillars?
No, because we don't have much else on them.
Right. Yeah. Welcome to the pro and con of lore exploration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you think we good to jump to the known figures and just kind of a quick update on each of them?
Right.
I think so at this point. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna queue up Randy real quick so that we make sure we get all the notes ready.
Lorebot 2.0 activated. Query received. Interfacing with expanded database directory. Response received. Displaying on screen for review.
All right, real quick, I just saw a question being thrown up in chat, and I wanted to actually kind of touch on it real fast. Destiny Tings, I like that. Makes me want to yell ting ting. Did a new age start at the beginning of the Taken War? That's a really good question, actually.
Yes.
I can see arguments for both sides. I don't think it did, but I can see how it could have. Beard, do you have any? Or Green Beard, whichever one.
I would kind of argue no, only because it feels like the actual fight or section or war, whatever, seemed like it was a very concentrated kind of idea, and it didn't necessarily impact the city too much. A lot of what we know in terms of like heavy battles impacted the city to a heavy degree. This was more of like an external idea when it comes down to anything with Oryx.
A preemptive
And him
strike.
being out at sort of to that notion. Yeah, like it impacted the reef more than it did the city. Meanwhile, we have stuff like Six Fronts or Twilight Gap or some of the others, just to name a couple, and even as far as Marimbrium or any of the stuff up on the moon that really impacted the city. This one did not. It could have turned into something terrible, but we stopped it fast enough. So I would argue to say probably not, but that's an excellent question.
If they're going to label it based off of major battles with lots and lots of troops or lots of host, there was no host sent to battle Oryx. It was us.
True. Yeah.
And the Awoken. And the Awoken sacrifice themselves, and they're not technically guardians.
Mm-hmm.
There are Awoken guardians, but the Awoken that went and fought them are not. So I would actually say definitely not an age. But that also gets into kind of the theory of like, when do you title an age?
Mm-hmm,
You think
right.
about how when you name an age, you don't name like the classical age of music or anything like that, or the Baroque age. That's not named during the time that you're living it.
It's all afterward, exactly.
Most of the time, a long time afterward.
Right.
So,
But meanwhile, with something like Tyra Karn around and how she is ending up kind of annaling our logs and history and whatnot, it's definitely up for debate on like how she's recording it. And then if that's the case, if the Titans end up recording it something differently, which we're not necessarily too sure of either, that throws another monkey, a whole different wrench in a whole system. So
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I can definitely see both ways to that. That's a... Whew.
Yeah, because I mean, and we know that the Titans, and to kind of go off that, we know that Titans kind of slightly record things differently because, and they have really heavy books apparently. Poor
yes.
poor postmaster.
Rocks,
Tomes.
books for the Titans.
But yeah, so I saw that question pop up in chat, and I just wanted to take a quick second to, because that's a really good question.
Very good question.
But okay, so to kind of touch on known Titans, I think the best way to divide these are in-game figures and then notable figures from I don't even know really what, like, external lore. It's not external lore, but it's not in-game like spoken.
Right.
But then there's like noteworthy individual, and we kind of divided these all up on the mind map. And so like there's noteworthy, and then there's kind of like the tertiary kind of mentions. So in-game figures in Destiny 2, we have Commander Zavala, obviously, Deputy Commander Sloan, Lord Shax, Lord Saladin Forge, and then actually, Oros is not in-game Destiny 2 technically, but she was in-game Destiny 1, so I feel that she does remain in that categorization. But those are
She
really
deserves more of a mention than some of the others.
Yeah, because she actually was, and especially with the upcoming DLC, we need to talk about Oros and Rip the Sunbreakers. But so let's just start from the top, right? You know, and obviously there are a lot more Titans. These are just major figures. So before I get yelled at on social media for forgetting a certain Titan or any Titans,
Saint 14.
Saint 14's not in game. Not in game.
No, he's
Saint
not.
14.
He's not.
Saint 14 is a noteworthy individual. I have him. I will talk about him.
I know. I'm just yelling it out. For the internet.
Okay. You're preparing me. I got it.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So let's kind of take this. I guess alphabetically is the best way. So Commander Zavala, right? If you're in stream, you can see me. I'm watching him watch the city. He's kind of a creepy stalker figure right now. He's alive. He is still. Let's see. He's still unawoken. He's, as far as I can tell, still Mel. He's still bald. He's still the Titan Vanguard mentor, and I think, as far as I can tell, still the Vanguard commander, which, by the way, is a separate distinction between a mentor and a commander. So his primary subclass, and I tried to note all this on the mind map for anyone who wants to go back and look at this. His primary subclass as a Vanguard mentor would actually kind of be none. He has kind of access to all of them. He does seem more of a defender, but he also, I mean, as a mentor, again, he has to instruct new Guardians, and if you pay like any attention to some of the especially in the Destiny 1 subclass quests, he's the one that is walking you through the use of all the powers. So he kind of knows what he's talking about on all the subclasses. That's really, I mean, he has a very interesting story as far as Destiny 2 goes, which we've kind of, I think we've kind of beaten that horse.
And for people who are just joining us, he is the only one that we've been able to watch their first rising.
Oh, that's true. Good
That's
call.
very true.
That's true. That's a very good call. Yeah. Though we do know from Grimoire and Destiny 1, Holborn actually mentions his rising, but we don't see it cinematically like we do with Zavala.
Wei Ning mentions hers in the Striker subclass mission.
Oh, does she? Okay.
Yeah, she talks
Awesome.
about it in that.
So cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's a excellent point. Beard, do you have anything on Zavala from a 50,000 point view?
Yeah, I was gonna say, he still quotes Sun Tzu all the
Nice.
time, and I
Speak
still
of-
like that quite a bit.
It's never gonna get old, obviously.
It really isn't. Like, if I continue to hear more and more quotes from that book, I'm gonna be more and more happy. Like,
Yeah.
please, for the love
I
of
do
God,
have-
like, educate people.
Yeah,
with
I
the
do.
Shakespearean actor.
Okay, so
Yes.
a very important question: does he still knit?
I hope so.
There's no statement of it, but I will say now that the dawning is coming.
Yes. Oh, I just realized. Do you think we'll see Eva return?
I
with
think
the
that's going
dawning?
to be her return.
I
I
would be
almost guarantee
so
that's gonna
excited.
be her return.
Because that was her big. That was one of her. That was her big thing, wasn't it? And
Any of the
Between that and-
festivals.
well, actually, yeah,
Yep,
she
I
was
was
kind
gonna
of.
say-
She was kind of like all the festivals, wasn't she?
Mm-hmm.
And Ikora just looked at her like, "Well, that's great and all, but
That's
what does it
right,
have to
yeah,
do
that's
with
right, yeah.
us?"
That was festival of the Lost, wasn't it?
Tradition.
Yes, tradition.
Well, and then I see chat kind of talking or was talking about Sloane. Do we want to jump to Sloane real quick?
Let's do
Yeah,
it.
because there's a lot to talk about with her, actually.
Yes,
Mhm.
there is. Real quick, I'm gonna just run through another little high level introduction before I kind of hand this over to Beard and Green. Sloane is the deputy commander. Obviously, she is a female human Titan. We don't really know her primary subclass. Or at least I wasn't. I don't recall it.
Not privy.
No.
Yes, we it is unknown at this time. Her main location is going to be on Siren's Watch. Everyone kind of playing D2 kind of is aware of this. She is the vendor figure on Titan, which is kind of on the nose. A Titan on Titan. Her primary occupation is the deputy commander of the Vanguard. So she is kind of in charge of that aspect of it. She also does seem kind of responsible for the allocation of resources, let's say. She kind of has a bit of a pull on where those things go. And then one of the miscellaneous trivia points that I really like pointing out for people is Sloane was actually active and present during. So there's actually two things. She was actually active and present during the City Age. She actually is one of the concept arts that we saw. She is actually the Titan. If you look at the construction of the wall, there's shacks on the right side of the picture. She's actually the Titan that's giving Shax she's assisting Shax with building the wall. Yep. She also was in Destiny 1. She was in Destiny 1 at the very tail end, and she was when she was giving a field report to Zavala concerning the post Rise of Iron events. So Sloane has been mentioned. It was just a name at that point. We just knew that it was Sloane. And so then when Destiny 2 started up, we got a confirmation on gender, on race, we definitely got some more information on her on that. And with that being said, I'm going to actually turn it over to Beard and Green, because I know, like Beard said, there's a bit to unpack with her.
After
especially
you.
Especially with what it seems like she's in allocation of. A couple of the things that definitely seem to kind of be pointed out with the story and some of the adventures that you end up seeing with Sloane. She seems like she has more of a tie back with Amanda to one point or another, and I know it's been argued left and right if she's like the leader of the field commanders, or if she's the leader of like field engineers and stuff like that. Yeah. And there's nothing that again points that out either. But she's constantly looking into different ways to kind of manage the Titan arcology. She is constantly looking into different ways and trying to dig up different files on like how to make this place work and survive, and how she can basically like utilize the systems that haven't necessarily been swallowed up by this possibly heavily failed terraforming that is Titan at this point after centuries. The biggest thing, though, that I love about Sloane is how much she constantly looks into backlogs of information, and how it seems like she's our little tip for saying that a lot of the stuff on, say, Dredge and Yor and other key figures from Grimoire has actually been almost lifted, because she's the one that you hear on Titan asking for these different files. So she's now digging into the past of what we had previous, even before the city ended up launching, and finding these little tips, these little things that happened before that now have another tie back to what we need to be concerned with again today. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, really, when it comes to like Sloane is like an overall. But I think her character is a possibility with how like stern but friendly she can be. Also has a lot of possibilities for building within the universe, especially just for like her possible knowledge, because she doesn't feel like a typical Titan to me at all, or at least what people would think of as like a typical Titan.
Yeah, I mean, I would even say on top of that, if you think of her as the deputy commander, if you think about how military structure works, the deputy commander is actually in charge of a lot of different things that frees up the mental capacities for the commander himself. So they're in charge of ensuring safety of the personnel and equipment, and they're kept informed of all the accomplishments, problems, and degrees of compliance with regulations and other directives through personal observations, inspection, reports, and staff meetings. She's literally doing all of the grunt work, so Zavala can do a lot of the strategy-based stuff. And that's purely what a regular, like a deputy commander would do in real world, among other things. That's just a very, very minor note of some of the jobs that they do. There's a full description online. You can find it. I just did.
Look at this big long list. It's really big and long.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then do you guys have anything else that you want to touch on with Sloan before we jump to let's see who we got? Shax, I think, is next.
Shax is indeed next. I think that's a pretty good introduction. I know we're probably going to learn a bit more about her and have a lot more interactions with her.
Definitely. I don't think her time in the sun is like even close to done.
Mm-mm.
I think they're only going to do more and more and more with her because she feels kind of left alone at this point. But I kind of think that any of the
vendors,
kind of like a branched out thing. Yeah, I think any of the vendors are realistically going to be used in more of a way than what they have in the past.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've never had vendors on different planets necessarily.
No.
They're
I
our
guess say that's
liaison.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah,
Let's
that'll be a big thing.
Yeah, let's get Shax.
Shax.
Mr. Broken Horn himself.
Oh man, so many fun quotes about the broken horn. So there actually are, and I think those were from D1. He explains, like, he's like, oh yeah, I would tell you, but you can't handle it. And then one of the alternate dialogues for him after you beat Oryx was, he actually says, okay, I'm going to tell you how I lost this, but it doesn't hold up to killing a god, or so. It's something along those lines. So apparently he does tell our guardian, he just doesn't tell the player. So, you know,
well,
take that.
We know what happens between the Battle of Six Fronts and modern time.
True. Yeah. Yep. And you know what happened between Six Fronts and modern time? Twilight Gap. There was a couple things, but real quick, a basic intro to Shax is he is still alive, as most people probably realize. Anyone who's ever played any Crucible will know this. He will yell at you quite happily. He is obviously a he. We do not know his race, because we've never seen Shax's, kind of like Saladin was way back when. He hasn't taken his helmet off that we can see. Obviously,
it's because he likes his helmet.
He does like his helmet. Obviously, he's a Titan. We don't know the primary subclass, though. If I was put in a corner, I'd probably guess Striker. His location is obviously still in the last city, which is on Earth, and his primary occupation currently is the Crucible Handler. Though, if you ever go and hang out in his little corner, you can tell that he is a bit of a hunter himself. Not the class, but he has a few trophies that he has brought from his old war room.
Cabal heads.
Yeah, the Cabal helmets, the Gate Lord head, you know,
the dragon,
the Ahamkara, the Ahamkara skulls, which anyone who knows anything about Ahamkara bones makes you kind of wonder what's going on with that. Oh yeah, then there was like the Whispering Stone from Destiny 1 that he was communicating with something. But anyways, before I go down that particular spinfoil, let's stay at the 50,000 foot level. You guys have anything that you want to throw in with Shax as far as updates for Destiny 2 specifically? Because we did a full episode on Shax. Actually, we've done a full episode on Zavala and Shax. Episode 59 was Zavala, and episode 60 was Shax. So we have done a full episode on both of these figures. But you guys have any updates on Destiny 2 that I'm sure I'm missing something?
You could just point out the cutthroatness that he has, and the fact that he wants us to go into the Crucible before any other Guardian gets their light back and decimate everybody.
Yeah. Oh my god. One of my biggest, I'm like, okay guys, hang on. Wait, we haven't finished the campaign. And I understand that from a game mechanics point of view, but still from a storyline, I was kind of like, I'm the only one who has light. Why am I doing that? I feel like a murderer. That's because I am.
They actually have something where they tell warlocks to stop killing each other until they're sure that their light's stable again. I loved that little line.
Yes. Look, guys, we know that you like being the Thanatonaught, but seriously, seriously,
to the face.
Could you stop blowing holes in your heads for God's sake, just for a second?
If you have a reason, if you want to know why, go watch Flatliners. It'll explain everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, Shax is awesome. Shax. The cool thing about Shax is just kind of to touch on kind of a little bit of a hidden aspect of Shax that a lot of people don't know. Shax is actually very, very tactical in his aggression. Yes. And this is basically, you can see this in from Destiny 1 with the entire incident with Burning Lake. Shax actually tried to prevent the the Vanguard or the Consensus basically from sending the Guardian host to Moon. He basically saw there was a battle at a location called Burning Lake. And the Guardians won, but barely. And basically this is where the city was pretty much first introduced to the swords of the Hive, which, for veterans of Destiny 1, he was... The sword is a very important aspect of the Hive culture, but the swords for the Knights were especially important for a number of reasons, and one of which is that they were kind of almost supernatural. And Shax recognized that we didn't understand them. And Shax is actually a master bladesman. If anyone from Destiny 1 remembers, the reason that we have exotic swords is because of Shax. Shax actually
give me my razor later back.
Yep.
Give me it back.
Yeah. He's got it. He's got it protected. He took it from your vault and took young Wolf.
What a jerk. What a jerk.
But he is actually the one who forged the exotic swords. So Shax is a very rounded out character that I don't think the three dimensions of him are as pronounced as I honestly would like. I would really like to hear more from Shax as far as like the tactics and stuff like that. But that's I just remember that. Oh yes, and if you can dodge a gun, you can dodge a ball. Right? Isn't that how it goes?
You were annihilated, so
you were annihilated. So did we win in a way? No.
No. But I do want to call to that, like, for a whole of 30 seconds all the same, because on the surface, as like a newer player, I've asked a couple people what they've thought of Shax, like just getting into the game, and they've all said he seems like very transparent. He just seems like that guy that like sits and yells at you. And then I was like, well, read these two cards that they made at the end of the game. He shows incredible respect to, as Blue says here, civilians, to kids, as to to just about anybody else. And he basically says the only people that have to call me Lord are Guardians. That's the only one that I demand end up saying it. So the Lord aspect of him, the way that he ends up carrying himself, he's carrying in a way, but he's to the point that he's like, I want you to get this done, but I want you to be safe about it. So please come home safe. Okay, we have to have coffee and tea and it'll be just fine.
He's the disapproving father that everybody wants.
Yes, I love that statement in chat. I love that, Pence.
I think that actually is from the dodgeball cards. One of the big things for Shax is that it shows that he is honorable because he lost the bet to Cade, and anyone who knows Cade knows that the likelihood of that being an honest victory is
Slim.
Lucky Pants? Anybody?
Yeah,
Lucky Pants?
Lucky Pants. It's like, but it's one of those things where Shax probably knows this, but he honors the bet that he lost, and he goes to the city and he teaches these two kids how to play dodgeball, Crucible style, which is just amazing. But I do love that. It shows that he has, because I think, isn't it like one of the civilians like says thank you or something like that, or like he mentions that they say thanks, and he's like, the civilians don't owe us thanks. Like this is
right.
This is what we are. It kind of kind of his mentality, and I love that presentation of him being like, no, I'm here to serve you, not the other way around. Which
and
also
it again just really proves that he's not that transparent. Like it really showcases that. And
to me it also shows that he is because that was the attitude of the warlords,
right?
And we know that Shax was kind of around that period of time. So I mean, to me that it makes a lot of sense that he would be very vehement about, no, you are not, you're not under me, because that's what they were fighting against. Especially since Saladin was, and speaking of Saladin, we'll get to him right now, actually. But Saladin was Shax's mentor, and Saladin was one of the original Iron Lords who were very, very strongly opposed to the warlords. But speaking of Lord Saladin Forge, let's look at him real quick. Saladin is still around. He's still a human. He still doesn't have a helmet, which is great stuff. He
may
is
not have a memory.
Oh my gosh! I knew you were gonna. I set aside time for beard salt on this one.
Did you?
Yes, I actually did. I was like, I think I made a comment, or no, I didn't make a comment. Did I make a comment in notes? No, I didn't. But I actually was gonna make a comment like, not too much salt, beard.
God.
But so he was, so just real quick, a real rough history of Saladin. He is the Iron Banner representative. He still is the Iron Banner representative. He has taken that title back from Aphrodite for the Destiny 2 game. He is located mostly on the last city. He comes and goes just like he did in Destiny 1. And he was actually, just a little bit of a trivia fact, he actually held the title of Vanguard Commander for a very short period of time after Osiris left. So it was kind of during the Twilight Gap era, which is where a lot of people kind of assume the fallout with Shax and him kind of occurred. But he has since stepped down, so he actually actively chose to retire from the Vanguard Commander position. And as we learned with Rise of Iron, he spends most of his time actually patrolling Plague Lands and and probably at this point keeping up with the Iron Temple, though we don't know if the Iron Temple's still around.
Technically.
Well, we don't know if like the Legion hit it or anything like that, is what I was
right.
But yeah, he was in the Rise of Iron. We learned that one of his favorite pastimes is long walks along the lines of the Plague Land, which is not romantic at all.
Well, it's all in the eye of the beholder.
I mean, yeah, I guess if you're remembering Yolder's smile.
Aww. Sad times. I mean,
if the only way you can smile is with a flaming axe, then sure.
Can I make one small, minute correction to something you said a little bit ago?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
The Saladin, you kind of hinted at it, but for anybody who's not familiar with D1 lore, wouldn't necessarily know this. But Saladin actually, for a little while during D1, was not the Iron Banner mentor.
Oh, sorry, yes.
It was just for a short period of time, and that's when Aphrodite took over for about, 6 months, 8 months? I don't even know how long it took. It was not terribly long. And then now he is again our mentor, which is kind of nice, but I miss Aphrodite.
Yeah, and yeah.
Me too.
Mm-hmm.
I have a theory on that whole thing too, but it's more for Aphrodite than Saladin.
I'm
Right.
going to say I have 500,000 theories on
Yeah,
Efferdite,
I mean, like,
so
I think
anyway.
the most logical for me, the Occam Razor explanation is the Red Legion came barreling into the system, and Efferdite is from a pacifist colony. Like,
Right.
she probably went to check on her new family. You know, and it's not the first time that we've seen Efferdite run away, and I say that not in a negative way, because it's not really. But she did the same thing with
The Iron Lords.
the Iron Lords.
Mhm.
So,
I mean, I've come up with a couple things on that one to quickly touch base. Just the idea that maybe something happened with the holdouts that she's with, and now she may end up like flipping sides and being like, "Oh no, I'm just gonna go storm down the Cabal now." That would be completely counter to the like development of the character, but it's just something else I kind of had on that one. Anyway.
well, and we know that and just kind of touching on that, though, it wouldn't be, though, because from the Lady Yolder card, we know that Efferdite kind of gets up in arms.
Little mad.
She gets she has a bit of an anger issue.
Efferdite has an anger issue like I do. Like, I'm one of those people that
Green's gonna throw someone like a javelin.
You saw me in mod chat today.
That's true.
When I break, I will break, and I will break somebody. But
that's when we have the gif of me going back into the Homer Simpson.
the
Homer Simpson's like, I'm just gonna kind of quietly make fun of this and then walk away and hide.
Yes, I will.
Nope.
I will be your best friend and your defender for as long as I can. But if you finally get to the point where you break me, I am not going to be nice to you for a while. Well, anyway, moving on. Let's go to the one that I'm actually most curious about.
Okay. Yeah, I saw your question on this one. So let's jump to Oros. Oros, real quick, just some basic information on Oros is, and Green, I'm going to come back to this, Oros is deceased. She is obviously a female. We do not know what race Oros is. We do know that she was a Titan. Given what Oros does, it's a pretty safe assumption that her primary subclass is, don't hold your breath, Sunbreaker.
Sunbreaker!
I know that's a very big shocker for a lot of people. But
oh my god, I would have never guessed.
God.
Okay. Okay.
Well, I was just going to say the occupation.
That's a big shocker.
Well,
You're saying that's a shocker, but if you didn't play D1, you would not know that. You wouldn't even know who Oros is.
True. And her occupation, what Green is kind of referring to, is that in D1, she was introduced as the 3rd Imperial Magistrate of the Sunbreaker. In Destiny 2, she is now labeled as the 3rd and final Imperial Magistrate of the Sunbreaker. Yes. We do see that we have an updated information from Sloan in Destiny 2 that indicates that the Sunbreakers have been destroyed by the Red Legion. Basically, this is believed to have been during the time that the Guardians were lightless, because we can't resurrect without light, guys. It's kind of a necessary component of that piece. There were hints also of the Sunbreakers having issues with Vex at the Forge during Destiny 1, but apparently they were okay with that. But the Cabal, their Forge is now currently in the control of Centurions of the Red Legion, according to Sloan. And that is why I kind of go back to the idea that Oros is deceased, because, well, as far as we know, I guess I could update it to MIA.
Yeah, because there's not a confirmation that she's gone, gone, but
I'll update that.
The way that Hollowfire Heart reads, however, it does kind of give this very final wording to it. And granted, when you start talking the Sunbreakers, though, and not to get into an Osiris tangent, but they do have some kind of time relation with Osiris. Whether they decide to go ahead and actually be able to travel through or do much of anything with it. But for me, the way that Hollowfire reads, it does feel very final. So I can definitely back up the idea that I think they've exited that character or exited the group almost, because we're meant to be the new Sunbreakers in a way.
Right.
And just bring that back into the city. I think that's our carryover, and our carryover in a way from how Destiny's one's third subclasses are meant to kind of carry, but that's a whole different thing.
Right, and just
I've
real
also
quick, Beard, just
sure.
real quick, while you're talking about Hall of Fire, I'm going to read that just real quick to kind of give people an idea of what you're talking about. It's basically, it opens with a report from Sloan that just says, "Commander, as best we can tell, they're all gone. Somehow the Legion found their outpost, and the hunters say Centurions still hold the ruins. This was the last text transmission we got before the signal died." So this is actually not even an audio file like what we had in Destiny 1. This is a text. This is an email. And it says, "The fire burned within us, not by choice, not because we sought the flame, but because there was no other way. When you stood before the forge, there was no doubt, no fear, not even anger. My order stood for generations. We held against the shadow, bearing a weapon that seared flesh and melted bone. And now we stand at the end. May history remember the forge, remember the hammer, remember the Sunbreakers." And it's signed Oros, third and final Imperial Magistrate of the Sunbreaker. So, I mean, that's kind of where the idea that I mean, I kind of agree with Beard. Like that kind of seems like a last will and testament, if you would.
I mean, there's that 10% that I would say that you and I would still agree with Green with that one. It is not a full confirmation, but it is a heavy allusion to the idea that they went out fighting, as was just said by Akalupo in chat. They went out fighting. They pushed as hard as they could to defend the Forge, which is basically their new home, their new source of light, their new way of basically being able to like tangibly do anything, and that was important for them. And they wanted to go out fighting and defending that spot like it was the last city. And very clearly, though, we do see that yes, they were okay with the Vex, like, in that area within the Forge, but there are 4 or 5 different places within Destiny 2 now that actually do say that on Mars, the Vex are being pushed back pretty heavily because of the Red Legion assault. So that being said, the Vex are actually being pushed back. They're having trouble fighting the Cabal. This new session of Cabal is that nasty. So for them to actually push back this group of Titans, which have basically quite possibly held up for centuries out there on Mercury, is impressive to say the least. And my only other thought on the Forge as well is what kind of connection it might have had with the Almighty, and what kind of source of light or power that would have actually granted it as well, because that was as we know, that was a very big source of light to actually grant us a new, like, third based ability for the Titan to utilize solar connected without, like, actually throwing ourselves probably into the sun, which probably still wouldn't have been a good idea. Though I bet we would have tried that. I bet somebody would have. Anyway.
Yeah, probably. With a rocket controller.
Yeah. But I still think that that's a very important piece, is to remember at least that the Forge is still there at this point. We don't necessarily know in what condition, but that might play a big role for us later down the line, even if the Sunbreaker Order is, for possibly all intents and purposes, gone.
All right. And then were there any of the noteworthy individuals that we wanted to particularly touch on that were that had relevant updates in Destiny 2?
I think the only other one I would say that has some update is there's been more mentions about Saint 14 in relation to Osiris in particular in D2, but he's still very much so an idea more than actually a character that we're expected to possibly see or anything like that, which you never know. We might see him with the Osiris update, and I think that would be awesome, but I'm not necessarily expecting that.
And going along with the Osiris update, we might hear from Kabir, so keep your eyes open for him.
Yeah.
But we won't, because it won't be Kabir.
But we won't, because it
Yeah.
won't be Kabir. That's fair. We might see the Aegis again. How's that?
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
we could see a figure that looks like Kabir, but
Yes.
remember for those who might think of trusting this individual, it's not Kabir.
Don't do it. The only other big one then too is Wei Ning. Several new items have actually introduced her in a different way, and we hear more of this idea that Wei Ning and Ariana were definitely most likely a big thing.
Yeah.
I am so
Which is
happy that
totally-
they finally confirmed that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Me
I gotta say there
too.
was so much like lauding around the idea, beating around the bush, but now
Mhm.
it's 100% confirmed.
I was
Going through the list here a little bit more. I would say still keep your eyes open for like Holborn and Jaggy. Otherwise,
Oh,
I think they're
Jaggy.
gonna make a little bit of a
Jaggy is
return.
good. And I want to talk about them in just a second too. But going back to Wei Ning real quick, a really kind of cool. So I cannot remember who made this comment, but I saw this the other day that like all these old guardians, and Beard, it might have been you. All these old guard like Pahanin, Kabir, Thalor, Wei Ning, all these individuals, they were all actually. They actually knew each other. Like we kind of got this presentation of them as being kind of like these individuals who didn't really talk to anyone, and didn't really interact with each other. Like no one would know who Toland was or Osiris was, but no, it actually they actually were. A cool trivia fact about Wei Ning was actually introduced to Ariana by Pahanin in a bar.
Yep.
So Pahanin is the one who introduced Wei Ning to Ariana 3, and in the Tower Saloon, according to the I can't remember the specific item that I pulled that from, but yeah, so like Pahanin was actually
It's Ariana's vengeance.
Is that the
I
vengeance?
believe,
Is that
not
the
to
vengeance?
cut
The
you.
ship?
Yeah, I think so.
And then the other really fun tidbit with Wei Ning is that she was so renowned for her argument about the practicality of just punching things that she is referenced in this very, very interesting ratio that's called the Pajari Wei ratio, which is this is the throwback to Destiny 1, but it literally is the comparison of the time that Warlocks spend planning as compared to the time that the Titans
punch.
spend
punching.
winning.
Mhm.
So yes, then Wei Ning has some of the best quotes about the darkness as well.
Well, and you can also find her on the Fighting Lion.
Yep.
That's her grenade launcher and a couple other things too, which I find
So
really cool that they bring her up again.
Well, yeah, and it also kind of again points to this idea that Titans are not just simplistic figures. I mean, she made the Fighting Lion. Like that was her creation.
Yeah, even like arguably the most simplistic of the Titans, if you will, the one that basically just focused on, well, if you can't punch as hard as I can, then you may as well go home.
Right.
That was like her entire credo, but there's still so much more behind her as a person and a character that she was willing to like sit down and talk with this warlock named Ariana and have something form between them, and they could both get each other. I'm not necessarily.
And she
like,
bought
just
repeatedly bought rounds for the entire saloon. Apparently, that
Of
was
course
her
she
thing.
did.
Yes,
Well,
like
she did.
she was fun. She was she was obviously a very a large person of character, honor, and decency. And I wish that she could come back in some way.
The thing that, and we kind of talked about this a little bit in chat, is the philosophy of a Titan versus a lot of the other classes. The Titans are what I would consider like a very incredibly practical without improvisation. Whereas hunters are like practical with a lot of improvisation.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And warlocks are I consider, now this is going to get me in a lot of trouble. Warlocks are the people who are the planners, but while they're planning, everybody else does all the things already in their own way. And so by the time they're done, they may have thought of the best way to do it, but it's already finished.
Yeah, kind of. Though I think some Titans get labeled in there too.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're just the ones who they're the wizards in the tower wanting to analyze the things.
Mm-hmm. I mean, and that's kind of the warrior scholars that they have. But I mean, the thing that I agree, the stereotypical segregation there is hunters are extremely pragmatic in their approach. Titans are very practical in their approach, and then warlocks are they're kind of they're a weird combination of like theoretical, but it's not to say that they're not pragmatic or practical. They just gravitate more towards.
They're methodical.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's perfect. So warlocks are the methodical. Titans are practical, and I would argue that hunters are just the pragmatic, like, well, if you do this, it's going to work. Like, that hunters tend to seem to be the ones that are more like, if you just do this, you're going to get this result. They're more in, getting the immediate result, and then worrying about the consequences later.
Right.
But yes. Do we want to real quick take a break and then jump? I know I wanted to talk about the host and the orders just a little bit more. And then I also know we needed to talk about the subclasses. You guys okay with that?
Missions. Creepy story time.
Before we do that, I just need to get the obvious thing out of the way. So yes, Ariana's Vengeance literally does cover a hunter, a titan, and a warlock walk into a bar.
Yes.
And we all see how that happened, how that resulted. The warlock and the warlock and the titan went home together, and the hunter is worried about squids.
No, he had no problem with it because he had super good advice.
Yeah, he did. His super good advice. His super good advice was to get the titan and the warlock together.
Yes.
I mean, obviously.
Obviously.
The other funny thing is that same hunter also walked into the Vault of Glass with a warlock and a titan, and that did not end very well. Yeah, we see how that. Did not. No. So.
Do one's lost the time. One's
maybe the success of Wei Ning and Ariana was what encouraged him to go out and say, "Hey, Praedith, Kabir, you want to go do some teamwork?" Because obviously, this chemistry is a very good chemistry. That was a terrible mistake, Pancake. I don't know what you were thinking.
Oh, don't blame it on Pancake.
He should have. He probably should have just grabbed 2 squids and gone into the vault with him.
He would have been happy with it. Stuck him on the ceiling and called it good.
Could have been like, I've got my friend Cal and Mari over here. They're gonna rip up this place.
Well done, sir. Well done.
Oh man. Well, real quick, I'm going to take a quick little break and talk about the sponsor for this episode. And so basically, as part of the Focus Fire chat community, you might notice that we do have an obsession with pretty much all types of geek gear. We have an entire channel dedicated to it, and it's a pretty brag-worthy place. So the FFC team would actually like to offer you a chance to experience that kind of rush of getting the goodie package yourself by offering you 10% off any new subscription to Loot Crate. All you have to do is visit www.trylootcrate.com/FFC and enter the promo code BRIDGE10, and you get 10% savings off a new subscription. The cool thing about this is that the theme, and so there's a lot of different options for Loot Crate. If you go to their website, you'll see all these. But the 2 big ones is for the regular crate is going to be Unite 2.0, and the featured franchises are going to be Overwatch, Power Rangers, and DC. And I know this is a big one for a lot of people in the FFC community, Voltron. Voltron's actually included in November. Then they also have a gaming crate, which is basically dedicated to video games and that ilk of entertainment aspects. And this November is going to be the theme of tank, and that actually includes BioShock, Call of Duty World War II, Wolfenstein 2, and Gears of War. So again,
Nice.
if you guys are interested at all in that, I got the October one was Demon, and I posted a picture of what was included in that crate just a few days ago. Really, really good content. I'm really impressed with it as always. But again, it's www.trylootcrate.com/FFC, and be sure to put the promo code BRIDGE10, and that'll give you 10% savings on any new subscriptions.
Here's a question for you real quick.
Yes.
I know you mentioned the 2 primary ones, but don't they have other types of boxes too?
Yes, they have a whole host. So Loot Crate has actually started doing exclusive crates. They're called legendary crates, which Pins, I know Pins and I think Libby and I think Rhino actually they all get the Halo one. So there's an ongoing, so there's different types of legendaries. There's one-offs, and then there's like ongoing series, just like their normal crates. And those are obviously they're more expensive, but they include a lot more. The Halo legendary crate is it's got like a really high quality content. You got like water bottles. The one crate from the Halo legendary crate that I got, they had a water bottle, a mini figure of the Hunter, a T-shirt, a poster. They're always coming with actual extra lore items within the particular crate that you get. So they have a Halo, they have a Firefly. I think they have a WWE one now. Like it's like they have a host of Stranger Things. They just announced that they're doing a Stranger Things crate for Stranger Things 2. But then on top of that, the normal crates that they also have like anime. They have pets. They have one for pets. So if you know you're a big pet person and you're still wanting nerd memorabilia, I guess. I don't know.
I want a costume for my dog that makes my dog look like a fallen. Like one of the vandals crawling around. That would be amazing.
The
Marauders.
Marauders, yeah. Oh gosh, that would be so funny. But yeah, so like just go to it's lootcrate.com for just the general site. But yeah, they have like anime, they have pets, they have what's called lootwear now, which is like clothing stuff. So like socks, they have a lot of scarves and stuff like that. It's like they have exploded. I remember when there was just one crate.
Right. And I had the original Loot Crate.
Yeah. Like I still like the original Loot Crate, but like yeah. And then you get also like every month you get a pin, like a little. I'm a sucker for pins, and not like writing pins, like the push pins. Push pins. Yes. Yeah. They've gotten. The quality of their pins has
they went from being the ones with like the paper and the plastic that went over the paper ones to actually being these nice metal casted pins.
Especially on the higher end crates, like the legendary crates, you get like very heavy duty pins. Like I have a Noble Team insignia pin from it, and it's seriously one of my favorite ones. The Destiny pin that I got was a Strange Coin. It's a Strange Coin pin. It's one of my favorite pins. So yeah, amazing. But real quick, to jump back onto topic, we love our tangents. But to jump back on topic, I really wanted to talk really quickly about orders of Titans, and that also includes hosts. So we spent a little bit of time on the Lost Lore talking about the first pillars. There are a few other orders of Titans that we actually get mentions of in Destiny 2, and we kind of get an update on. And one of them is actually one of my favorites is the Firebreak, and I wanted to kind of talk about that a little bit, because the Firebreak order was one of the orders who were dedicated to actually kind of not being the defensive figure that the Titans normally were seen as. They're actually dedicated to being to taking the fight away from home. They wanted to defend the city by basically going on the offensive and pushing the enemies back. We find out that in Destiny 2, as part of the city displacement, a lot of these orders kind of have been required to relocate some things, or they're just gone now. And the Firebreak is one of the ones that, to their shame, were basically displaced. We figure this out by the individual who goes by the name of Callisto Yin, who is basically one of the few surviving Firebreak members, and who is actually the bearer of an item called the Fire Victorious. And the Fire Victorious is a part of, I'm trying to remember, the Fire Eternal, which is a piece of the Firebreak orders, basically their sigil. Right. And so Callisto, as part of the city kind of falling, she actually was the Titan who managed to get a hold of the Fire Victorious and carry it safely out of the city. So this is kind of the picture of I get the picture of Aeneas from, carrying his father and his son, like that whole type of thing. That's kind of the picture I get of her, just like carrying this very important aspect of this order. The Firebreak were renowned for their propensity to headbutt people. People who might recognize that particular tactic from another famous Titan. Also, Saint 14 was made, one of his famous moves was to headbutt somebody. So the Firebreak were a very aggressive order of Titans. We also have the Stoneborn. The Stoneborn were arguably one of the older orders, and who were arguably I almost connect them in my head to Silumar, to be honest, because of the way, because they were kind of attributed to the construction of the wall. And so, and Silumar is that was his thing, was construction of architecture. He was the architect, he was the Titan who was the architect of the Iron Temple. And he was obsessed with building walls that wouldn't fall. It was kind of his thing. So I always kind of attribute them. But the Stoneborn are, I want to say off the top of my head, I'm trying to remember, I'm pretty sure the Stoneborn are gone. Is that right?
Yeah. What I had looked up before we really got going here, yes, between the Stoneborn, arguably the Sunbreakers, the First Pillars, and a couple others that we haven't touched base on just yet. Yes, it does seem like that they're gone. Even their philosophy seems like it's like dead, buried.
Well, it's like, just to be on just a sweeping oh man, that word is going to escape me tonight. Just to be very generalized. There we go. That's the word I was searching for.
Generality, maybe too.
Yeah, that one too. With the Red War, can we say that most of the organized groups, whether it be the Titan orders or the Warlock, I can't remember what they're called in the Warlock. Wow. Brains. The Hunter caste, like the different groupings in the different classes.
Yeah.
Like the Praxic and Thanatonautics.
Right.
Hunters don't really have them.
They they
have packs. They like kind of
right.
I was going to say, you got like 6 coyotes and everything at the least, stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. But with that, is there any evidence that those older groupings like that are still around? Is there any groups left?
That's what I've been like thinking about as I was going over those these orders, like before we really got going. I was like, the majority of what we started, like we started to like look into and what's written, it seems like it's been wiped out. Like the large majority of the orders feel like they're like wiped out.
Right.
Well, granted, I mean,
we know there's different groups left, like not necessarily like the orders, but
they've been reshuffled.
Right.
Which is a kind of, I think we talked about that last time too, is that entire reorganization of priorities. I think that was a large part of it. And I really think that the Titans, I mean, we were talking about Peacekeepers, right? Remember the Peacekeepers, which they are not an order necessarily, but they kind of are. They're weird. They're a clan, to be honest. Let's just be honest. That's kind of what they were.
think of it like a if we're going to bring up something like the Warlocks, think of it like the Praxic Order in a way. That's also founded on a philosophy as well as the ideas that are there. Meanwhile, it seems like a large majority of the Titan orders that exist are more with a certain designation of like-minded people that want to go to the same end. And granted, I'm not going to say that that's much different than something like Praxic, but Praxic is a study. It's a buildup of ideas around like Warlock tradition. Whereas if you look at something like the Firebreak Titans, their main idea is to get out of the city and go beat stuff up. And their whole aspect is more of like a collective build, if you will, or something close to that. Again, I might not be explaining myself so well, but
yeah, and I mean, I would almost argue though that they're the same. But that goes back to practical versus pragmatic, and or practical versus methodical. Because and admittedly, the Praxic are kind of a difficult example to use for Warlocks because the Praxic in and of themselves as a Warlock order are kind of a standalone. Which is why like Saint 14 appreciates the Praxic order, and Wei Ning kind of appreciates that is an order that aligns very closely to the Titan mentality in the Warlock grouping. But then you have orders of Warlocks such as the Thanatonauts, right? They're definitely more secretive, I guess. They're not really secret. They're not secretive, but they're so focused on gleaning information from the events that they don't really pay attention to the cost of the events. We were kind of joking about the Warlocks. Stop killing yourselves until we know the light is actually back. And that's definitely a Thanatonautic approach. Is like, oh my gosh, we got the light back. Let's go. And he's like, no. Like I can see that's like, whoa. Whereas like the Titans are very practical in the sense of like, and we also talked about this, last episode with Saint 14's theory on the darkness, an invading armada. Like it's a very physical, very, I keep saying this word, very practical approach to the problem at hand. Right. And that's kind of their mindset. You have the Chain, you have Agama, you have, the Sun Legion. Sun Legion isn't a great example because Sun Legion was kind of responsible for it's an entire order that's dedicated to building armor. Like that's what they do. They build armor and they supply it to new Titans. That's it. Your Stoneborn, which is the Stoneborn was kind of presented as like not only the construction of the wall, but they were kind of the engineer corps almost. It felt like they were kind of the responsible ones for upkeep. You have the Chain, which is all about defense and holding the line. Your Agama, which we don't really know much about Agama other than supposedly they were still present at the Battle of Six Fronts. And then Firebreak. I mean, in Firebreak, the reason why I love Firebreak is because of the old orders. It was one of the ones that they had just so many kind of little cool connections. Firebreak was actually the order that actually went out beyond the wall and actually created a literal firebreak. And I talked about this quite a bit with the Major Battles episode way back when. But they actually made a 5-mile firebreak around the city to protect the city, and that was kind of their entire thing. Was they took on threats outside of the walls to protect the walls,
right?
And so like, and yeah, dancing in chat is like it's a disciplined approach. It's that military approach to the practical how do we get this done approach. And you see this not just in orders, and I'm going to kind of use this as a segue. You see this not in orders, but also in host. You have the two main ones that most in the lore community will recognize are Yagi's host or Joggy's host, whatever you want to call it, and Holborn's host. Yagi's host, we don't know the full. Back up. We don't know how big these organizations are, right? Mm-hmm. We don't know how large they are. We know that they are a fairly decent size. We also kind of have a nod that the host might not be 100% Titans. We see that especially with Holborn.
Yes.
Now, we don't know if that means that he is just working in conjuncture, and the reason I say this is Holborn's host was also known for working with Lyssa, who was Alyssa the Lighthearted, I want to say, who was believed to be a warlock, if I remember. So there's kind of there's a looser affiliation with hosts than there is with orders. Orders are definitely Titan orders are exactly that. Titan orders. It's kind of like a warlock order or warlock school of thought. The Thanatonauts are all warlocks. Like if you study Thanatonautics and you're not a warlock, you're not considered a uppercase T Thanatonaut, because a Thanatonaut is a warlock who is studying Thanatonautics. You can study Thanatonautics, but you're not going to be part of the Thanatonautic school of thought.
You could be a geek of comic books, but
Right,
to actually
right.
understand them.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
It's.
gosh.
I mean, like it kind of feels like splitting hairs on that one, but it is an important distinction. It's one of my biggest pet peeves is the Exo who shoots himself in the head. He's not a Thanatonaut. He's not a Thanatonaut because he specifically calls out that he's not a Thanatonaut. He says that he's looking at it like a Thanatonaut. But pet peeve aside. But what I mean there is like, so Holborn's host we know quite a bit about. Holborn's host were actually sent to Mars, arguably to look for Charlemagne, but we don't have that spelled out. But they were sent to Mars to search for computers, is what we are told. Charlemagne, but and we see this in Holborn. And here's a question for you, Beard. Is Holborn's first name T-Bon?
No, because to me it kind of reads that it's.
Were there three people in that conversation, or were there two? Because I was reading it, and I'm like, how many people are here? I'm so confused.
I've always read it as three. Like,
okay,
it seems like there's a pass back. Like the way that one of them talks is different from the other. So it does feel like there's three. But
that's how I read it at first, and then I was reading it last night. This is a Ghost Fragment Titan card. Is just it shows Holborn's personality perfectly.
Yeah,
but it's a conversation between at least two people, and it's like, and then they start throwing names around. And it's like, okay, who's who? Like, what's going on? So I was like, maybe his first name, which just cracks me up because then it would be T-Bon Holborn. I don't know. I don't know why that name just makes me giggle, but it does. It doesn't flow very well at all. But it just. So Holborn's host is actually located on Mars, and we know that they're still pretty active, actually up to. The Taken King, because they are the reason that we know a lot about the Cabal. They actually discovered the Firebase on Phobos, and gave a lot of information to Zavala in conjunction. They actually worked alongside Shax and the Redjacks. And Green, Tuvok is Holborn's second in command, who is described as, quote, one of the finest Titans in the city. Tuvok seems like a stand-up guy who doesn't put up with Holborn's back in my day speeches, which is just
Tuvok? What about Tuvok? What?
Tuvok Shakur?
Moment. Never mind me.
No, we're done with you. Anyways, but actually, Tuvok, bringing up Tuvok, that is a good segue into Yagi's host. And this is what I was kind of finding interesting for Yagi's host, is that Yagi's host is often kind of assumed that they're gone, that a lot of people kind of read that they're dead and gone because of the Mark of the Lost Seven. However, if you read the Ghost Fragment Titan, you kind of have to like read between the lines on this one, but like Holborn is talking like just kind of out his butt, it almost seems. And he's like, because they basically, Ghost Fragment Titan is they find a ghost just kind of wandering, and it almost is like a Siva ghost. We don't really know. There's a lot of theories about if it was Dredge and Yore's ghost, or if it's a 404 ghost, whatever. But so Holborn is talking, and this ghost is just wandering aimlessly around, and he's like, "Oh, that's like when Yagi's host ghost, came back from the Caspian Sea, and no one could figure out what they were doing, and blah blah." And then Tuvok actually mentions, he's like, yeah, that's right, but Yagi remembers it differently. So like he makes a comment about Yagi in the present, but then right before that comment, they attribute that the mark of the Lost Seven happened in the far past. So Yagi is still around, and I would argue that his host is probably still around too. I didn't know if you guys.
I'm going to say what I've kind of felt from that has been that Yagi himself was around, but that the order that he might have had, or the host that he had, didn't make it so much.
Right.
And I now have my theories that I've kind of tied back those 7 ghosts to, but that one in particular is definitely highly up for debate, and I know there's quite a bit of a weird thing that happens with just that little story that Yagi has. I could talk about those ghosts all day. Anyway,
yeah, there's a lot of tangents on those ghosts.
Totally, and I feel like that's basically what, you know, when you start talking about Yagi and even Holborn, it is basically just about like tangential stuff. They lead off to all these other questions that start to exist. But in particular of the way that like Yagi's host is, we don't know, unfortunately, much about them aside from the questionable point of, is there still a host or isn't there, and what is the actual status of them, and are they active or not? Because to me, I again read that as it was Yagi alone that made it through whatever it was that ended up really inflicting on those ghosts or whatever had happened. Because the whole idea that ghosts are returning without their guardians, just to touch base on that quickly, doesn't happen often. But the simple idea that they could effectively like return, not have a guardian with them, means something happened to those guardians, possibly.
Siva.
Yeah.
Right, and I guess I read it a little bit differently, because I read it as that was a scouting party for the host that Yagi was not part of. But see, like the thing is like 7 is just an odd number, not for Bungie.
Well,
Bungie it
not
fits
for
a lot
Bungie,
with,
exactly.
But like in the game, like it as far as Bungie goes, 7 is all over the place. But like in the game, we don't really hear of 7. Like,
no,
as far as fire team
fire
size, because fire team is
it's not
6.
fire team, it's not raid size, nothing. Like,
right, like the only fire team sizes that we've really heard are 3, 6, and 9 from Savathun's song, which Green made me play the other night, and I have, oh my gosh, my head hurts from all the spin foil.
You don't regret it.
I don't regret it. It just hurts. It just hurts. Like the comments that were there's so many comments that were made in that. And I was like, and my poor brother was running with us, and he's like, I don't understand what you guys are talking about. Why are we not killing this person? It's like, no, stop, stop.
Not yet. We have to keep them alive. We must extrapolate all the information.
It's like, don't go past the checkpoint.
I just wish I would get it more often. Like, I've only gotten that strike maybe twice in all the strikes I played.
I wish you could call him up like you used to be able to.
Yeah, you said it.
Because
I feel like I'm going to start getting it less now, but I almost always get that one, and people get really ticked off at the fact that they always get that one, and I'm like, oh no, I will play through that one as many times as they will give it to me, because there's always something different that I hear. It's beautiful.
I always get arms dealer. I've ran that strike so many times.
There's nothing in that one, like, at all. There's like a couple little quips, and I'm just like, I don't care. Shut up, Kate.
What's the one?
Ghost showing appreciation finally for what we do.
Yeah. He's like, why did you pick it up?
Which one is arms dealer? That's the.
That's the one with the fallen that's invisible that you Ben and I have run a lot.
Yeah,
Boop? The boop one.
Yeah, the boop one.
Boop. That's the one
that
I turned off this channel. How did you get back in here? I'm the best. I've helped so many guardians today. It's like,
that's
go away,
that's what is that? That's Exodus Black, actually. The
Arms Dealers was the Thumos, right? Or not Thumos?
Oh no. Arms Dealer, is that one EDZ?
Yeah, I thought Arms Dealer is the EDZ one. Yeah.
That's the one I have not finished because I still have this stupid side quest for it.
Yeah, that one's really grindy. But yeah, the Exodus Black one is just hilarious. But okay, so talking
need
about
to make
missions.
like 4 videos about them. Oh my god. Anyway.
Yes. But okay, so talking about missions, I know Green, you have undertaken a, I don't know, would you say that it's a large project of recording everything?
It's the recording part isn't bad. It's the editing part afterwards. Like, I have a new appreciation for anybody who does YouTube videos. Beard.
I was going to say, gee, this sounds familiar suddenly.
Oh my god! Just like I have a 5 terabyte external hard drive that I've been saving everything to, and it's insane. The thing is like editing it and then transcribing it, because Ishtar Collective is still working through a lot of their stuff, so there's a lot of things that they haven't gotten to transcribed yet, including some of the subclass missions, not all of them, and a lot of the adventures and the strikes. So
and especially with like alternative dialogue and everything too, just
God,
interject that point.
It's so insane. It's not Ishtar's fault in any way, shape, or form. They're working hard and they've done a great job. And quite frankly, I just keep checking in every couple of days to see if they have anything new on there, so I don't have to transcribe it. But yeah, I transcribed the 2 subclass missions that are variable that we get, because I think everybody gets the same dialogue for the initial spark when we first get our powers back. But when we do like the Striker mission or the Sunbreaker mission, those are variable to obviously the specific subclass, versus like not the Blade Dancer, but Gunslinger and Night Stalker, or the other 2 Warlock classes they're going to be very specific. And we get some really fun tidbits, I think, in the Titan ones in particular, because a lot of the other ones that I've played so far have been throwbacks to D1.
Yeah.
And some of the stuff we got with the Titans, yes, it's a throwback, but it's expanding upon some of the things that we already knew. Like we get more about Wei Ning, and we get more about the description. Who reads the description of when Aphrodite throws Saladin?
Me. It was so great. Drunken recollections are the best.
It's so good. It's so good. That's
I just let that entire thing play when I was trying to reference it in my video. I was just like, I am not editing this down at all. This needs to play with the stutters, the stammers, everything. The way that it is. Yeah. This is beautiful.
This is why that's why I let Zavala do the introduction tonight. It's just like, I can't read that as well as a Shakespearean actor. Take it away. So
I mean, unless you're William Shatner. Anyway.
No. Shatner, if Shatner ever does a voice in Destiny, I will be done.
He'll be the new Ghost.
No. The door will never, ever
look at it. Look at it this way, Green. At least he would have plenty of space to actually put his words, because of the space that they would have with like the robot clicking and everything, the transcoding. It would be perfect in that respect, you know?
We would never get anything done because we'd wait for him to finish his stupid sentence. I'm sorry.
Subclasses.
Anyway, yeah. Subclass.
What about tangents?
Apparently we found out one of Green's triggers.
I was gonna say, what about tangents in a that's Star. I was gonna say in a galaxy far, far away. Whoops.
Right. I like Star Trek. I don't like Shatner. That's just me.
Yeah. I'll say the original series, but Picard over Kirk, definitely.
Right. So we get a lot from Wei Ning in the subclass mission, especially in the Striker one. We get just her talking in general, which is awesome. And her descriptions of like punching things and why she's such a bleepity bleep bleep.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. She's so good. Like, she's just really good.
Yeah.
And then there's a few. Okay. So I know Bife did a video and Mylan did a video on like who's speaking in these.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like actual confirmation in who's speaking in all of these besides Wei Ning and Shax and Zavala? Because there's one voice that I cannot recognize, that I don't recognize.
I don't think there's confirmation on any of the speakers. At least I know for the hunters, like except for the ones that you can blatantly tell. Like I'll admit I've only run hunter subclasses because, you know, yay full schedules. But I know for hunter, like there is, like, other than Cade, and then like you don't really recognize anybody else.
Right. Like this, there's one section where it kind of sounds like you're being taught by Shax or Zavala or somebody, a Titan of some sort, where they're saying, I heard the roar before I see him, but when I look up, I can make out a blue burst against the skyline. When he falls, he brings the sky with him. He scatters me and my squad to the wind, leaves us dead.
That's a Crucible Ghost fragment.
Right, it is. And he said, tell me what you learned, which I think that one, that's obviously
Shax,
but I don't think Shax is reading it. I think it's somebody else.
Well, that, I believe, was voiced by and I could be wrong on this, a female.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know exactly who that would have ended up being.
Oh, Pens is saying Sloan said
Sloan.
That one.
It didn't sound like Sloan, but if it was meant to be like a younger voiced Sloan, I don't know. But the voice sounded off on Sloan. I didn't have that immediate thought, but I would have to listen to it again.
There's a little bit more reverb put into the voices because they're that memory sound rather than the immediate in your ear sound. So
which doesn't make it easy to figure.
Right.
And granted, I had that same problem with Shax too, because the first time I listened to it, it didn't necessarily sound like Shax either. So that's why I'm not going to like push off the thought that it couldn't be Sloan in that respect. I would probably just have to listen to it again. It would probably be in my best interest to slap it in Audacity and see if I could take the echo out of it and see if that would work. But
it would probably make it sound more tinny. I will tell you that it will thin it out. But as far as like the Sunbreaker one, it's mainly stuff that we got about Sunbreakers originally in D1.
Mm-hmm.
Although we do get the nice story about the Six Front people, six of them who actually refused to take the orders, and they went against orders, and one of us was a Sunbreaker. They named Liu's Feng.
Oh, that's where Liu Feng comes from. Okay.
Yeah, she's from the
Liu Feng
Sunbreakers.
Also made the Sunshot and
Mm-hmm.
the Sunbracers, as they are called now.
Yes.
Right. And they talked about how they died. And Lord Shax, or not Lord Shax, Lord Saladin and Zavala actually kind of fell back. And these six decided they were going to stay out there. And when Zavala and Saladin saw that they were actually able to kind of hold their own, even though they fell over and over and over, they made a counterattack. So we have examples of Zavala and Saladin not making necessarily the best decision right away, or utilizing their tools, I guess you could say. What else we have in here? The drunken Aphrodite speech.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's about it. The rest of it is stuff that we got from D1. But they're fun. They're fun to listen to.
Well, it's nice to listen to all of them again, realistically. I haven't had a chance to listen to the Hunter yet, so I'm actually in Blue's opposite position because I haven't played my Hunter.
The Hunter one is really good. I like the Night Stalker one.
Yeah.
I have
It's creepy.
It
especially if it's Tevis Larson, like I'm hoping it is. That would be fantastic.
I want to talk to you after you watch it, because I'm
actually like just do that tonight? Is that what you're?
Yeah,
doing?
I'm curious on your feedback on the choices that they made for the Night Stalker one.
Okay.
Because I honestly I didn't really agree with all of them. some of them I kind of think I know where they're going with it. I think I get the lesson that they're trying to do, but I didn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's here neither here or there. So that was that you said green on the Titan ones. The Striker was the one with the drunken Aphrodite.
That was Sunbreaker.
That was Sunbreaker. Okay. So Sunbreaker was drunken Aphrodite, and then was Sunbreaker also the Twilight Gap one?
There's a mention of Twilight Gap and where was it? It's in there because it talks about the fallen were everywhere. So it's about like the third projection, I think.
Okay.
Is where it says that.
And then when you said that the rest of them were from Destiny 1, is that all of them or was that just Sunbreaker?
Really, all of them have ties into Destiny 1 into the lore. Like they're either direct quotes or they're modifications of the quotes. And there's not a whole lot beyond that besides the fact that we're hearing specific people talk to us about it again, which I think is awesome. And it's a good introduction for people who may not have ever dove into D1 lore and be like, hey, this is some of the cool stories that we know from Destiny 1 that we would like to talk about again at some point. At least I'm hoping they would like to talk again in some point, because there's some really good legends and stuff. But yeah, most of them are actually from Grimoire cards from Destiny 1.
Yeah, almost taken completely from some quest dialogue that we had previously too,
Or
which I
flavor
think is a nice
text.
little, I'm gonna say there's a lot of little extra nods they did. That's what kills me about some of the stuff that they've done so far with the lore, because they have moments like those where it's just like, this is beautiful. This is a wonderful little tie back to what they've done in that respect. And I actually, like I was going to mention before, I actually had more fun with the Titan subclass ones than I had with the Warlock ones. And granted, I know that's a completely different topic altogether, but when it comes to the Warlock ones, it felt like they were very bland, where the Titan ones actually had like a lot of feeling behind them.
Well,
But again, I think that kind of calls back to the way that Titans are versus Warlocks.
Right, it's more the personality of the subclass, the typical personality. The Titans got a little bit more bravado, I guess, rather than your Warlocks who are going to be kind of the ultra serious ones.
Well, I mean, especially when you've got Tolan voicing things like,
oh, God.
Traveler said,
yeah,
it's a good idea. Like, I'm just sitting here going, okay, when did this become The Shining? And all work and no play make Jack a dull boy.
Is the D2 version.
Here's Johnny.
Thank you.
He's the new Varix.
Yes. Granted, we heard Toland in D1, and I am kind of glad that they brought him back for D2 just to keep that together. But it's just like, I'm going to go along with Ghost on this one. Toland wasn't very fun at parties.
Yeah. Pretty much. Creepy man.
Oh, I love what Tavira says. When I heard Tolan speaking, I imagined him wearing a spooky Halloween costume. And he's just dressed as a hive wizard. That's his costume.
Oh.
There it is.
Oh.
And he's confused why everyone thinks it's a Halloween costume.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, what are you talking about? If
This
you
is my
brought your
Sunday
laws
best.
into this area, you wouldn't be able to understand.
Oh, gosh.
I feel like I do that a little too well. I'm going to stop that now.
And then,
Well-
was that Black Flag, the Osiris comment in chat. They changed the voice actors.
Yeah,
Too.
They did. Let's do the thing that Beard is probably going to get most salty about tonight.
Oh boy, here it comes.
Yes, it is. You ready, Blue?
Yeah, this is where I put it. I did put it in here.
You did.
So I put aside a little bit of a thoughts for the host section. New subclasses, that pesky Saladin's memory. You know, what are... I'm going to just give the floor to Beard, because actually, speaking of the Exodus, down strike, Cade actually calls out that Saladin talks about us a lot, young Wolfie.
Yeah, doesn't he?
Yeah, he calls us young Wolfie, or young, yeah, it's something like that, like in the very beginning of the strike. So
yeah.
So go.
Okay, let's do it. We're bracing ourselves.
Setting a time limit and go.
Are we gonna do debate rules?
I was just gonna let him talk.
Okay. 50 minutes added to the clock. Wait, no.
There you go. Exactly. So it all starts from the very moment that you freaking walk up to Saladin and he doesn't even greet you. We have 5 other places within the game that they understand and could go ahead and start talking about the simple factor that, yes, you did have Rise of Iron happen. And now all of a sudden it starts this, the thing that frustrates me the most about it is effectively it calls up this question within the community, within certain sects or members of it, as if Rise of Iron didn't happen. All because of that one mention. And that is where consistency starts to be that important, and where not having Saladin mention that is what falls flat. So long story short, and I'll keep this as brief as I can because I've already explained myself at length at what was that video, 17 minutes of how much they screwed things up with that one. It just comes down to being consistent. We have so many different ways that they could have just had 1 or 2 nods to allow things to be done. And the Aphrodite thing I can look away from. Even not putting Shiro 4 in or mentioning him, I can look away from. We have Tyra Karn, even though that was one of the biggest cop-outs in the world. Just these different ideas that they could have easily done to make it work, and they decided not to. Or is there something else that is going on, and he clearly is having a problem with his memory? And what really frustrates me further, because this is actually a point that I didn't bring up in my video, the voice lines that you actually hear within Iron Banner are complete and utter trite. They are garbage. And the fact that they have something with the ran out of metals thing, with him doing his Reaper voice line, goes with 2 possibilities. Either he is losing his frickin' mind, or they just put it in as a bit of fun. I'm going to go with the latter one, obviously, but it still doesn't add anything to basing the character, and it still doesn't help the position of he's probably not in a very good mental state. But now the question needs to come back to, is he? Was he broken up the same way that Tyra Karn was with the way that the light was? How is it that nobody else was necessarily affected by this? And you could paste the theory that because Tyra and Saladin are 2 of the oldest members we know of, they were affected in some different way. And that's the only thing that could even possibly cast that off. But Tyra still remembers things. She remembers quite a bit of the cryptarchy. She still remembers quite a bit of what she needs to do. She understands her lessons and reasonings. She understands what the Traveler is, this, that, the other thing. But Saladin, on the other hand, still understands his base principles as well. And that's about as far as he ends up going. Go ahead, Green.
As far as Tyra, so if we're going to get into this debate on whether or not Tyra and Saladin are similar, as far as Tyra goes, Tyra has some mentions that I think are some of the most worrisome in the game, too. Especially at the very, very beginning of the game, the mention about the corruption of the Traveler and everything like that in that area. But if Tyra and Saladin are considered some of the oldest ones when it comes to Risen, and they're kind of a different, not necessarily breed of Guardian, but different type of Guardian, that can lead to some interesting developments when it comes to Aphrodite, or some of these other ones that are older, like those 2, which who else do we know that are from that age that are still around? Anyone?
Osiris.
Okay, okay. Technically, we don't know when Osiris was reborn, though. We know that he theoretically was a Golden Age experiment that was reborn incorrectly in a human form. Blah blah blah.
Propaganda
that
trash.
whole line.
Propaganda
We
trash.
don't know if it's true or not.
Lysandra was actually the experiment, and I could point that out to you in one of the new glass house things. Moving on.
That's fine with me.
God, yes, thank you.
Yep.
Hey.
I loved that line. Anyway.
But the fact that we don't have anybody else necessarily that we know of besides Aphrodite, Saladin, and Tyra that are some of the earliest Risen, it begs the question as to, are they different? If so, how are they different?
Mm-hmm.
And why are they affected differently than we were? Because we didn't lose our mind. We didn't forget everything that happened in D1.
Well, neither did the other Vanguard either. Like, that's
Right.
the other clear-cut case in that respect as well. Like, it doesn't seem like any other Guardian was necessarily affected by this, but they ended up doing it in the case of, here's Tyra Karn, you may have known her from Rise of Iron, but you may not have.
Right.
And I feel like it was meant as just an easy way to, like, lead it in as part of the story, but it does still open up that other question. Again, did Rise of Iron happen? And it's that consistency in terms of the story that they absolutely dropped the ball on. And I think that carried over pretty well into Iron Banner, especially with some of the lack of voice lines that we have. And I could even take it as far as the faction rallies too. They don't have enough in there to end up like saying much of anything in that respect.
Right.
I would think that, especially with myself being a ranked 150 FWC member, that Lakshmi would know me at one point or another. And to me, that is something that was also a missed possibility, where the faction leaders should have at least understood your presence. Even if they didn't necessarily care for you, which they should have because we frickin' saved the city countless times. Even if they didn't know you, they probably would have known about your exploits and been like, there's the one that, you know, ended up getting us all this information about Gull from the Dreadnought and this, that, and the other thing from how long ago for Dead Orbit and whatnot.
Right.
And there's these little tie-ups that they could have done as like this whole vet story, as these twin stories going on. But I don't know. I could rant about that forever. But yes, I like what Blue said here. This is the conspiracy known as Rise of Iron retcon, and I legitimately think that is like a huge. It is a conspiracy theory because it's mentioned enough within Destiny 2 that we know that Rise of Iron happened. It's the consistency, and I think that's where I'll change it. It's the consistency theory known as Rise of Iron retcon that is the problem at the moment. It's that key word that Bungie needs to figure out real fast, and I'm hopeful because the live team's involved now, and they're generally pretty darn good about it. Like I like the live team. I've liked the live team for basically the last 2 years, 2.5 years, and they've always been solid. So that's my rant and spiel, I think, all done.
Yay!
I hope it wasn't too much salt. I gave you like a...
Nope.
Real quick, I'm going to run through a dispatch that we got, if you guys are okay with that.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Here we go.
Dispatches from the wilds.
Alrighty, so we got another update. I'm just going to start calling these the Millie updates because these are just amazing. This is a long conversation that we've been having with Millie over his girlfriend's introduction to Titans, and so he sent in this email that says she's now level 20, power level 272. We ran her first Nightfall the other day, and she just got the Mida multi-tool last night. Congratulations. I love that thing. She wanted to pledge Dead Orbit, which is a very valid choice for her first faction rally, but went with New Monarchies as did I for the sword. I was like, I'm done. Yes. Millie, I liked you. I trusted you, Millie. I trusted you.
Millie,
I never did.
We can be friends.
So surprisingly, she's not all purple or shiny or purple and shiny. She's holding off until she's 280 and has most of the gear she likes. We are having a blast in D2 together. The lack of in-game has me a little bored with it, but now all the fun has been restored as I experience the game through a new player's eyes. So, Millie, you know, we were friends, dude. We were friends, and then you had to go and join.
Oh, hush you. He's fine.
But speaking of the in-game comment that he made, Millie also sent us what looks like a really good one. I haven't had a chance to read it just yet. It's a very, very long, it's a much longer email about possible, like, his thoughts on the in-game content and what could probably be done. So I'm going to read that, and Millie, I'll get back to you on that. I'll probably have Beard and Green also. I'll share it with them to get their input on that as well. But those were our dispatches for today. I'm going to also give a shout to Maury for her very, very strong and very well thought out dispatch over on Twitter of asking why Titans are the best.
Maury is awesome.
I'm gonna try to politely ignore your tweet, Maury.
I think the one you had of Simba and Nala looking at each other was kind of on point earlier
oh my god!
I know it was disconjoined,
that conversation was like what is happening at this point? I got into a Twitter conversation where I don't even know. We were talking about the coverage ratio of bath towels and robes.
Yes.
Look, that's what happens when Tim and I start screaming at each other. Okay, it's just that's what happens. This is what it devolves into. This is what happens when we've lost our minds playing a game together for the last 3 years. This is what happens.
Well, I mean, I guess that kind of leads right into it. Do you guys have any shout outs, Beard? Do you have a shout out for us this week, or shout outs?
Well, I'll get the typical one out of the way. Guardian Con is coming up July 13th and 14th. Do not forget to pick up stuff. St. Jude's donation is going on right now. I will always and probably forever, and you guys are going to get sick of hearing me say it, only because St. Jude has done so much for my family. So anybody that does do anything for them and can donate, I thank you very much. However, yes, I am going to go ahead and give a shout out to my good buddy Grindhead Jim. He has been streaming hardcore pretty much a lot longer than I've been doing the YouTube thing. He was actually the one that kind of kept pushing me to do YouTube. I had started early on with like a history of video games thing, and then I ended up kind of stopping it. And then I was doing some movie reviews, stopped that. And then I started doing some Let's Plays, which quickly evolved into me doing Destiny videos, and I don't know how that actually happened, but I started having a lot of fun. So he was the one, if you guys can, go support him, Grindhead Jim, over on Twitch. You can find him on Twitter as well, but he has done a number of things for me in my life, and I owe him a lot.
Cool. I'll be sure to get his links in the show notes.
Thank you.
Green, what about you?
My first one is a shout out to anybody who has ever or will possibly ever serve in the armed forces, because we're recording this via Veterans Day. So, or like the day before, technically. Is it? Yeah, day before. But Happy Veterans Day for anybody out there. Thank you for your service. You guys are awesome. I know I couldn't do it. Moving on from beyond that, my shout out definitely goes to Maury. We mentioned her a little bit ago. Awesome Miss Maury. Dames. It's just extraordinaire organizer beyond belief. Like, she's way more organized than I am, and that's saying something because I do the mind maps and spreadsheets and my job is organization. But she will be possibly joining us in the next couple of weeks for the show, and I'm excited to see her. So I'm going to give her an early shout out. Kind of like, I'm excited because she's an awesome person and I want to talk with her. So
all right, and then for myself, we have the episode next week is going to be a introductory look at exotic weapons in Destiny 2, and if you guys are in the chat, it's rolling pretty quickly. I know Rhino's keeping everyone on task on that one, and I appreciate that, because there's 19 weapons. There's only 7 days in the week, so it's a pretty tall order to get through even an introductory look at them. But we'll definitely, if you guys have thoughts, questions on that one, definitely send in emails or at Twitter, or even on Discord, however is easiest for you. We love getting those dispatches. And then I'm just going to echo Green, as a big thank you for anyone who has served. We appreciate that. And I don't think I can put into words the level of appreciation that I have for that. So just know that we appreciate it beyond whatever paltry words can be said. And then I think that is all I got. I wanted to say, oh, yes. You'll notice there is no poll this weekend. That is because we are going to starting next Tuesday, we're going to be taking the week off for the Thanksgiving break since I will be out of town. And so we're probably going to continue the conversation of the exotic weapons into the week, but then also we are going to be starting to see some of those game stream reveals from Bungie. So we'll have those to probably chat about a little bit on that topic as well, because I think the very first one is on the 15th, and it's going to be talking about what we talk about every week, and that's the stories. But Green, I know, did you have something?
yeah, just one last little thing, and just kind of a general shout out to anybody who listens to the podcast. One of the things that I've noticed lately is that we have had a huge influx of people coming into the Discord server, which is awesome. I'm glad you guys are jumping in if you're one of like the podcast listeners. If there are people out there in your fire team who kind of want to know about the story or just like even don't, share either Beard's videos, Bice videos, our podcast, share the story, share the love, because there is a story out there on Destiny. There is a huge amount of story that is still hidden in there, even though it doesn't feel like it. It's still there, and we're going to get more, which I'm excited for, and I know everybody on the team's excited for. But continue to show people what we do know by showing them the different content creators that are out there that are still working on creating things for you.
Yeah, and on that note, a really good place to do that is actually on the Destiny Lore subreddit. They have a list of basically, I can't remember what the name is, but it's something like lore masters or but anyways, it's that team has gone through and kind of gone and picked out all the content creators. They're not really, selective at all, but they just make sure that the individual at least has team has a history and is somewhat, not just yelling at people. It's actually a serious creator. But the Destiny Lore subreddit is an amazing place. That place has been really picking up lately. And so if you guys have any interest in that, definitely check that out. And Beard, I know you probably have a bit of something to say on this one.
Well, I'm gonna say I don't know how verified it is because they put me there. Anyway,
well, we're there too, so I mean, double down on that statement.
Yeah.
No, I was actually notified about that a couple months back, and I was as much as I go ahead and like self-deprecate myself because I know I'm terrible with it. I am flattered beyond belief to be put onto that list. But But for me personally, what I wanted to kind of touch base on with the story more than anything, because that subreddit is huge to showcase that there are so many other people that are interested in the story. There's so many other people that are trying to build it, look into it, so on. A lot of people probably noticed that I haven't been as consistent with my content recently, if you guys do follow me as like my channel side thing. But it's more a matter that I don't have time. It is not a matter that I am running into things that I don't want to talk about or things that I can't talk about, so on and so forth. I don't have time to cover everything that I want to right now. There is that much involved in it. There is that much that we need to all keep kind of looking into. And over on my Discord right now, too, the lore is just constantly pouring in. People are finding different connections and ideas all the time. I'm actually adding on to my old journals more than I am to my newest ones. And I think that is what's most exciting.
It's a good thing that ThinkGeek gave you a couple new versions, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, that reminds me of one of the comments that Jason Harris and Matthew Ward had made way back when about how they wanted to see complaints about there being too much to cover in Destiny 2.
Right, and it's one of
just
those
very
things,
well hidden.
like,
it's just very well hidden. It's
it's
the game's best kept secret.
It's not necessarily hidden. Like, you can get to it. There are things like the scannables that are a little bit more like search heavy, but everything's accessible. It's just going out there and doing the work to gather the information, because it's not given to us this time.
Yep.
But that's me. Yeah. If speaking of the subreddit, I had been tweeting out a lot of the subreddits from a lot of the hot topics from the Destiny lore subreddit. I'm going to start that back up again because I thought that was a really good way to kind of get those guys a little bit more exposure. So if you are not a fan of Reddit or not on there, and just because you don't want to see a lot of the extra stuff, follow me on Twitter, and I will be posting the hot button topics that get posted in that subreddit, so you don't have to go through all the muck.
All right. Well, I think that's everything. Are you guys good to take off?
Good here.
With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. Links to all our other sites can also be found with our episode archives over on the new FocusFireChat.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any questions or comments for our team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. Also, be sure to check out all of our amazing podcast partners within the Guardian Radio Network over on theguardiansofdestiny.com. So until next time, focus your fire, and may your light shine bright.